The rain tapped softly against the windows of Joe's Diner, a modest 24-hour spot tucked off Highway 9 in rural Indiana. The scent of fresh coffee, sizzling bacon, and maple syrup filled the air. It was just past 9 a.m., and the booths were nearly full with the usual mix of farmers, truckers, and traveling salesmen. Behind the counter, in a faded blue uniform and a tight smile, worked Emma Carter. At first glance, Emma looked like any other diner waitress, efficient, polite, and maybe a little tired from the early shift. But if you looked longer, you saw the faint scars trailing down the right side of her face, curling slightly at her jaw and disappearing behind her ear. They told a silent story, one that many noticed but few ever dared ask about. Emma had grown used to the stares. She'd learned to anticipate the hesitant eye contact, the awkward pauses in conversation, and, most of all, the kindness withheld from people who didn't quite know what to make of her appearance. It hurt less now, or maybe she just buried it deeper. But what no one in that diner knew, what even her co-workers never truly understood, was that Emma had been someone entirely different once. Before the scars, before the fire, she had been known in her community as Emma the Brave. At just 23, she had become the youngest female volunteer firefighter in her county. She had trained tirelessly, worked double shifts at night to support herself, and spent weekends teaching CPR to local teens. Her courage wasn't born from tragedy, it was born from a need to protect others. She had grown up in foster homes, never knowing the warmth of a permanent family. Her earliest memories were of shelters and social workers, of bouncing between houses and never feeling like she belonged. And yet, somehow, Emma grew up kind. Empathetic. Selfless. That morning in the diner, when she greeted each customer with a soft smile, it wasn't just service, it was survival. Each table, each order, each pot of coffee poured was a testament to the life she had fought to rebuild. She wiped down a booth and refilled an elderly man's coffee. "Can I get you anything else, Mr. Jacobs?" she asked. "You're a gem, Emma," the old man replied, smiling warmly. Not everyone treated her differently. Some still saw the soul behind the scars. The doorbell jingled sharply as a young couple stepped into the diner. They were well-dressed, city types, he in a leather jacket and crisp jeans, she in a beige trench coat and designer sunglasses perched atop her head. Tourists, maybe. Or just people passing through who thought too highly of themselves to notice where they were. Emma approached with her usual warm tone. "Welcome to Joe's. Sit anywhere you like." They slid into a booth by the window. She handed them menus and poured water. The woman stared at her for a moment longer than most. Her lips parted slightly, then she looked away, whispering something to her partner, who snorted a laugh. Emma had heard that laugh before. They ordered eggs Benedict, extra crispy hash browns, and lattes. Emma wrote it all down without flinching, though she knew what was coming. The man asked, "What happened to your face?" Emma blinked. "Kitchen accident," she replied quickly. She had learned it was easier that way. The truth made people uncomfortable. When the meal ended, Emma dropped off the check and offered a gentle, "Hope everything was good." "It was fine," the man muttered. She cleared their plates and returned moments later to find a credit card slip signed with a 0 in the tip line. 0. Emma blinked. She wasn't new to this. But it still pierced her pride every time. It wasn't just the money, it was the statement. As she picked up the slip, the woman said, just loud enough for Emma to hear, "If she wants tips, maybe she should fix that face." The words cut sharper than any blade. Emma stood frozen for half a second. Then she nodded, whispered, "Have a good day," and walked back to the counter. The cook, Ronnie, had seen it all from the window. "You okay?" Emma nodded. "Yeah. Same story, different day." But then the door opened again. In walked a tall man in faded jeans, an army green jacket, and a slight limp in his left leg. His head was shaved, and a thick beard covered his square jaw. On his chest glistened a dog tag, worn like a second skin. "Hey, babe," he said as he approached Emma. She turned and smiled, genuinely now, fully. "Hey, you're early. I missed you." He leaned in and kissed her gently on the cheek, careful of the scars. Then he turned, scanning the diner. He caught the couple at the window, who had gone suddenly quiet. The man, her husband, walked toward their table with calm, deliberate steps. The diner, filled with murmuring voices and clinking cutlery a moment ago, began to hush. He stood in front of the couple. "You said something about my wife's face?" he asked. The man in the booth blinked. I didn't mean anything. It was just a joke." "Yeah. Lemme tell you a joke." He pulled a chair from a nearby table and Saturday, Emma got those scars pulling 3 kids out of a burning school bus. She was a volunteer firefighter before she even turned 25. Gasps rippled through the diner. She didn't run away. She ran toward the flames. Carried those kids out on her back. The third one, little boy named Aiden, was screaming. She stayed in the wreckage until she found him. That's when the roof caved in. The woman covered her mouth, her eyes wide. She woke up in the burn unit 3 days later. Couldn't speak for a week. And the first thing she said was, "Did Aiden make it?" Emma stood at the counter, her hands trembling. She never wanted praise, her husband continued. She never asked for pity. All she ever wanted was to live a quiet life and serve people with a smile. "And you thought you were funny." The man in the booth swallowed hard, shame creeping across his face like a slow storm. The veteran rose slowly. "You don't gotta tip her. But you will respect her." The diner was dead silent. Even the cook had stopped flipping pancakes. The couple left a $100 bill on the table without a word, eyes fixed on the floor as they walked out into the rain. Emma's husband walked back over and pulled her into a hug. She buried her face in his chest as the applause began, soft, scattered, then louder. Mr. Jacobs stood. Then Ronnie. Then nearly every patron in the place. It wasn't for the confrontation. It was for Emma. The applause turned into cheers, and the story didn't end there. Later that afternoon, a local blogger named Tanya, who'd been sitting in the corner booth, posted about the incident. It went viral within hours. By evening, Emma's name was trending nationwide. People from all over began calling the diner. Messages of gratitude poured in. A firefighter in Texas sent flowers. A schoolteacher in Ohio mailed a handwritten letter. A burn survivor from Florida drove 300 miles to meet Emma and thank her for giving people like her hope. Days later, Emma was invited to speak at a local school. She told her story, not just the fire, but her life before it. Her foster homes. Her loneliness. Her will to serve. Her resilience. Teenagers cried. Teachers clapped. And young girls lined up to hug her afterward. That night, she told her husband, maybe all of it, had a purpose. He squeezed her hand. You were born to shine. Even if the world tried to dim you. Joe's Diner eventually added a new item to the menu, Emma's Firehouse Omelette. Every order donated a portion to burn victim support centers. Customers from other states came just to order it and shake her hand. And every morning, as Emma poured coffee with a smile that reached her eyes, customers, old and new, saw something they would never forget. The strength of a woman who walked through fire, and the man who stood beside her, reminding the world what love, respect, and humanity really mean.